Shalom. This week's Torah portion is Parashat Toldot. Here we begin to learn of the struggle between the twin brothers Yaakov and Esav. We learn of the birthright and the blessings, and of Esav's enmity towards Yaakov, an enmity that first began while they were yet in their mother's womb, and that continues to this day. What's really going on here? There are so many levels of meaning. There's a great danger of oversimplifying if we think we can suffice with a surface-level reading. And by the way, we've talked about the concepts appearing in our portion in great detail in our ongoing weekly Zoom classes. You're invited to participate, and recordings of previous classes are available upon request. Torah is not a storybook at all, neither is it a history book, and yet this first book of Bereshit, Genesis, is the book of stories. But its secrets detail the creation, formation, and the foundation of everything. This is the eternal blueprint for existence. So, these are not simple stories, and the struggle of Yaakov and Esav is not to be understood literally. In these portions, we're learning of patterns and dynamics that are being set into motion by Hashem's plan that will reverberate through time towards their conclusion. On a practical level for us, since Torah is for us now, this translates as our odyssey towards the fulfillment of our own destiny. We are very much a part of this plan. As our sages put it, the deeds of the forefathers is a sign for their children. Like Abraham and Sarah before them, Yitzchak and Rivka were not able to have children. This was divinely orchestrated, a sort of setup, because in the words of our sages, God desires the prayers of the righteous, and so he puts the righteous in a situation wherein they will have to cry out to him. At our portion's opening, Yitzchak's prayer is answered, and Rivka conceived, but something was very wrong from the very beginning. Rivka experienced great distress in her pregnancy, as verse 22 tells us. The children agitated within her, and Rivka knew this was more than just the usual prenatal movements. Midrash relates that when Rivka would pass by a place of holiness where Torah was studied, the Beit Midrash of Shem and Ever, Yaakov was activated as if struggling to get out. And conversely, when she passed by a place of idolatry and impurity, Esav became all excited. So she said, "If so, why am I thus?" Meaning, what is unfolding here? What's going on inside of me? Who are these children? And she went to inquire of Hashem. So she was given a prophecy. Hashem said to her, 2 nations are in your womb. 2 regimes from your inside shall be separated. The might shall pass from one regime to the other, and the elder shall serve the younger. This prophecy made it clear to her that these are not simply her children. In fact, it's not about them at all. The sons are 2 nations, diametrically different from each other on the most fundamental level. What was unfolding here inside her womb transcended the personal particulars. These are archetypes. These children are the roots of the nations who will be their descendants, destined to struggle with each other over the fate of the world, meaning over the direction of humanity. According to our sages, the struggle between these 2 sons within their mother's womb includes all the future confrontations and struggles between the good and evil that they represent throughout the generations. Relentless, eternal struggles all throughout history between the pull and lust of the physical and the uplift and call of the spiritual, between light and darkness, all of which are given expression in the form of these 2 sons. So open up your heart. We're still working with the original theme of the book of Genesis. As soon as Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden, man's perpetual inner struggle to choose between good and evil began. He has to constantly decide which way he wants to go. And now, the challenge will always be over whether God's presence will be revealed in this world and recognized and acknowledged and thanked, or whether it will be concealed, rebelled against, denied, exploited, and expropriated. Adam was sent out of the garden to work the earth from which he was taken. That is, to serve Hashem by revealing godliness through the very physicality of our world, and thus to uplift the world to its potential for holiness. That's man's mission, his job description and challenge. Abraham, the first one who sought the one true God and who taught knowledge of him to the world, was given responsibility to safeguard and transmit the legacy of Adam, and God promised that that legacy would be passed on through his seed. Back in Parashat Vayera in Genesis 12, God declared, "And I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you shall be a blessing, and all the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you." And before destroying Sodom, God reveals his plans to Abraham, precisely because Abraham was the number 1 citizen of the world, and like the true man of kindness that he was, He was interceder for humanity, no matter how wayward it had become. So God said, shall I conceal from Abraham what I do, now that Abraham is surely to become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall bless themselves by him? For I have loved him, because he commands his children and his household after him, that they keep the way of Hashem, doing charity and justice. Although Abraham had 2 sons, Ishmael and Isaac, Yitzchak, God called Isaac your son, your only son, and he told Abraham, but I will maintain my covenant through Isaac. And he told him, through Isaac shall your seed be called. Isaac and Rebekah had 2 sons, twins, Esav and Yaakov. Midrash relates that Esav pushed his way out first, threatening to maim their mother if Yaakov did not acquiesce. Yaakov already understood full well at that time just who his brother was. This, as well as the description of their turmoil when Rivkah passed by places that attracted each one according to his nature, all this may sound whimsical, but our sages couch the greatest and deepest truths in allegory. Nothing about this story can be understood literally. The allusion here is to something much deeper. We're being given a glimpse of their innate nature. And because Yaakov and Esav are the founders of nations, the few words which Torah uses to describe them are very significant. And they grew up, and Esav was a hunter, a man of the field, and Yaakov a simple man, a dweller of tents. Esav represents obsession with control and with the material. His descendants, Edom, became the realm of evil, embodying within it all the powers of malevolence from time immemorial, constantly at odds with and bent on destroying the spiritual world that is the legacy of Israel. This is a battle that continues in every era of history. Yaakov, by contrast, is a simple man, a dweller of tents. On a simple level, he was a shepherd. The occupation of shepherding is the opposite of hunting. It's to be in the service of the world, to develop the world. He was not familiar with Esav's techniques, and it was a great challenge for him when his mother instructed him to don Esav's garments. But open up your heart in the deepest way. His voice remained his own. On a deeper level, Yaakov's tent represents his spiritual occupation, Torah. And as his own dream in next week's portion of Vayetze testifies, Yaakov sought to be the ladder connecting heaven and earth. Yaakov sought to elevate the physicality of the earth as Hashem had entrusted to Adam by revealing God in this world through every aspect of his life. That's the meaning of a life of Torah. The whole world was thus attracted to him and wanted to be attached to him, wanted to be near him, to be close to him. He exuded the presence of Hashem and the unity of all things. And thus again, in next week's portion, we learn of the stones he placed under his head that became one. Another story that will have to wait. The Esav sought to plunge the earth into the darkness of its own physicality by extinguishing the light of heaven. Physicality without borders, that's Esav's calling. Esav the hunter hunted game and men, and he hunted their wives. A hunter chases after what he desires. He uses force and subterfuge to grab all who are fleeing from him. He was always compelled to pursue the physical because all of creation, sensing who he was and what he wanted from them, fled from him. And Esav too looked for spirituality and sought it. And thus he denied Hashem and he worshipped idolatry, because the whole idea of idolatry is to try to cause spiritual forces to become subservient to you and to your desires so that you can receive what you want. It's a dark manipulation. Today it's called politics. The story of the sale of the birthright appears immediately following the description of the sons as a highlight of that which separates them. Esav is a murderer and a sexual predator of unparalleled and unbridled brutality, masquerading as an innocent fellow, even righteous. He was never interested in the birthright once he understood that it brought not privilege, but responsibility for this world. Our sages share the midrashic backstory of the day Esav came in from the field exhausted. He had good reason to be tired. That day, the day of Abraham's death, was a busy one for Esav. He raped a betrothed woman, he committed murder, he denied the existence of God, for starters. So Esav looked at the pot of lentil stew, and in his mind he weighed its value opposite that of the birthright. Boy, did Esav see red. That's all he could see. And in his desire for instant gratification, in Torah's recording of the original me moment, he told his brother, pour into me now some of that very red stuff. Esav is forever called red because of this story. His redness is the redness of heat, of bloodlust, the need for the immediate fulfillment of the basest desires. This is not a side story, an anecdote on the origin of Esav's Edomite identity. This is a description of Esav that became his descendants' national characteristic. Open up your heart. Yitzchak's desire to give over his blessing to one of his sons is another aspect of the clarification of the continuation of Adam/Avraham's legacy. It's up to Yitzchak now to push Hashem's plan forward. It's Passover night, and as Passover hasn't happened yet, it's back to the future. Yitzchak knew that his descendants would be freed from bondage this very night, and that it's a night pre-configured with great spiritual power. He knew that it was time to set into motion the spiritual development and mission of Israel in order to bring about the redemption of all humanity. Esav had always feigned righteousness in the presence of his father Yitzchak, but his mother Rivka, who carried him in her womb, knew what he was about. Yitzchak entertained high hopes for Esav. Seeing his connection to the world and his involvement with the physical, he had hoped that Esav could use his nature to his advantage and reveal Hashem's presence in the physical realm that he so solidly dwelled in. Torah's goal exactly. But Esav had already shown his disdain and contempt for Hashem when he despised the birthright. That had been his chance to show his desire for the service of God in this world and for the betterment of humanity, living life for divine purpose. But that's Israel's legacy. And as Rivka knew, Esav wanted no part of it. Esav did want those blessings, though. The fraud wants everything on his terms, for his benefit, for his agenda. He feigns righteousness. He talks of justice, this politician, but he's a fraud. His machinery is fraudulent, and it's all smoke and mirrors. He's evil incarnate. Every year we read Parashat Toldot. We read of this struggle because it's real. It's a constant. It's the substance of our reality. The clash between these two forces is still spiraling through time with cosmic implications, and the enmity is a law of nature. As our sages teach, it is an established rule that Esav hates Yaakov. This eternal struggle affects every person who sincerely questions, what is my mission in the world? Hopefully we learn the answer, to bring about redemption, to increase light. There's a struggle for supremacy within each of us, a struggle of the forces within each of us, something pulling us down towards the abyss and something pulling us up towards our source. That something is called free choice. This spiral will continue until the day of Hashem. The vision that Ovadia prophesied. On Mount Zion there will be refuge, and it will be holy. And the house of Jacob will inherit those who had dispossessed them. The house of Jacob will be fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esav for straw. And they will ignite them and devour them. There will be no survivor for the house of Esav, for Hashem has spoken. And saviors will ascend Mount Zion to judge the mountain of Esav, and the kingdom will be Hashem's. Today's lesson is dedicated in memory of a most beloved soul on the anniversary of her passing, a holy soul who fled from Esav's grip and succeeded in connecting heaven and earth and revealing Hashem in this world. She fought against the darkness and greatly increased light in this world, bringing many to righteousness. May her memory be for a blessing. Please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. If you enjoy these presentations and benefit from these teachings, please consider helping Jerusalem Lights with your support. Only your support enables these broadcasts to continue and grow.